Okay. All right. I can do that.
Awesome, guys. So
All
I'm
right.
joined by Ryan Hurst from GMB Fitness again this week, and we're going to talk about our love of gymnastic rings and why you should start using gymnastic rings as well. I was actually doing a client interview this week, Ryan. Awesome interview. This guy was couldn't like chronic back pain like 3 years ago and rehabbed his back. Now he's back deadlifting. But the big thing
Cool.
he was like, dude, I love gymnastic rings so much.
Awesome.
And
Awesome. Well, I
a
mean,
big,
yeah.
I was just saying a big part of it was like just the physical challenge. And I remember when I started doing them first, when I bought your rings program, uh, the bicep DOMs I got the first time I ever did skin the cat just wrecked me. But yeah, do you want to just explain
Right?
what the rings
Yep.
are and how people can get started with them as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I love the rings. So one of our first programs in GMB was rings. Kind of, we actually had one program before the rings, but I guess you should say kind of like our official first program is Rings One, really, really original name. But anyway, that was way back when. So anyway, so the gymnastic rings, um, in gymnastics are called the still rings. And the reason why is you want to keep them as still as possible. There are also the swinging rings, which you can find, for example, very popular in a lot of beach areas, especially in Los Angeles. I can't remember. I'm sure they're in majority of the beach parks, but anyway, it's a series of rings that you swing from ring to ring. That's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about the still rings. Now, in terms of that, the gymnastic still rings are connected via a very, very long, um, it's a cable actually, therefore making it very difficult to keep them still. Back in my days of gymnastics, the rings were actually one of my favorite things. And doesn't mean I was great at it, but I just loved them so much. And so I still to this day enjoy using the rings. Nowadays, a little bit easier for us. And the reason is because the rings that we're using, the straps are shorter. Still makes it tough though. And so a lot of the reason that rings are so difficult is not just because the length, but because they are not connected. They do move. And so you must control those rings. We're going to work on improving not just the main muscles, but also the inner muscles, the stabilizer muscles, to keep from you looking like you're having a seizure up on the rings and trying to keep them close to your body. So a couple movements that I feel are very, very important. In fact, the first movement I think is extremely important for people to be able to get when they're working on the rings is the top support position. Basically, just being up above the rings, having the rings close to your body, pushing down and through with your arms straight and your feet off the floor. Start off with that. Looks pretty easy when you do it, but Connor, in the
I
beginning, it's
I'm laughing
tough.
because that's like my favorite. Like when I used to work in a gym, to be all these bodybuilding guys that be super like they're strong like benching and stuff, and then they'll be
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
let me
absolutely.
show me the rings there, I can use them, and
Like,
they're like, oh my
"Ah."
god, how is
Yeah,
that so difficult? So yeah, it's a
right.
completely different animal. Like yeah, getting on the rings.
Absolutely. And I think, this is another thing where you learn so much about your body when you just jump up there above the rings and you feel that and you're like, oh my goodness gracious. And like you said, you can be really strong in terms of the basic positions that we want to be strong in: a squat, push, press, hinge. You know, those, yeah, extremely important. I want to add a rotation. No one says rotation, but I think that a rotation should be in there. But the rings, the cool thing about the rings and why I find it it's completely opposite if you think about other things. If you are moving weights, you're moving weights, okay? Well, the rings, you don't move weight, you move around the rings. You have to keep them in place. And so just a completely different thing. And I think that this is why I love them so much, is because yes, you're going to get really strong, but it's that amount of control that you need in order to stay up there and do the things. Now, you can keep them super basic. You could do things like, for example, just stick with the top position, a dip, and a pull up from below the rings, and you'll be absolutely fine. But the cool thing about rings is there's so many options to explore and play. Things like, L sit to the bin arm stand, controlling yourself going from that seated position to an inverted position and back can be extremely humbling. And yeah, I mean, I could go on and on forever about why I think these are great. But if you've never experienced the rings, then and you're interested in getting super strong, I think that they're great. The other thing I want to say quickly is that one of the major reasons that I prefer the rings over a bar is that because the rings are an open chain apparatus, open chain, again, they're not connected in terms of anything below them. They're not connected directly to the ground. They move, and it forces you to um, use those stabilizer muscles when you're doing something. But a big reason that I do like them is the fact that they do move. And so, therefore, if you do have issues in being in certain positions, you can adjust the rings by simply moving them in order to help you get into that position. An example is pull ups, chin ups, and neutral grip pull up, chin ups. The rings, because they move, if you have had issues with your elbows or things like that, performing pull ups or chin ups on a bar, because the rings will move around, you can actually get into a position that's going to be better for you and still continue working on your pulling strength.
Yeah, that's a really important point. I find anytime I get a shoulder niggle, if I try and pull off a straight
Yeah,
bar, it flares it up. So yeah, something that moves
absolutely.
just allows you to kind of work around it, which is super important. One thing I want you to
Mm-hmm.
actually touch on as well, mate, is when I saw you guys, it's so like this stuff seems so obvious now because I've seen it, for like 4 or 5, 7 years, like, but when when you showed the ring variations by just using your feet, so you don't
Right.
instead of doing a full top position, you can,
Yeah,
do you want to maybe explain how people can
absolutely. Yeah,
scale their movements, especially with rings, because it's pretty
sure.
intense at the start.
Yeah, scaling movements, I think, obviously something that we really focus on in GMB. You need to be able to allow yourself into a position so that you can perform a movement. And what I mean by this is looking at safety, and that is, um, I really enjoy the rings because you can adjust the height of them and use your feet as training wheels. A lot of people will say, well, you can do the same with bands. I get that. But one reason that I don't like the bands, because, and I know it's not too common, but you can't really control the band, but you can control your feet. And so a band might snap up and pop you in the back, or it might break, or, I don't know, you might fall out of the band somehow. But with your feet, you know where your feet usually are, and you can adjust the pressure in which you place into the ground when you're performing these movements. So adjusting the height of the rings, maybe taking it lower to the ground so you have your tippy toes on the ground, slowly, gradually taking the load off of your feet, raising the rings a little bit, making it more difficult. I love that so much. And that's how you can scale pretty much any of these movements over the years. That's how I've taught this. Not that bands can't help you, but again, you know, I just like the feet because it is very, very easy to scale movements in a way that's going to be productive for that particular person. Yeah. So we have
Yeah.
everything from my favorite movement, the reverse row sit back, and then moving into the baby muscle up. These are just simply examples of how you are keeping contact with your feet on the ground, but using incremental progression in terms of scaling that movement, the intensity of the movement to make it pretty darn difficult, even with your feet on the floor, so that when you start to raise the rings up, you will have the necessary strength as well as flexibility, mobility, when you're working on these movements, because the rings don't lie. And so when you're above the rings, if you don't have that proper mobility in your shoulders and you want to work on a muscle up, you can really hurt yourself. And that's not what we want. So using the scalability of the rings by having your feet on the floor, being able to lower the rings, and then working on the movement itself, really getting good at the mechanics of that, allows you to improve your mobility while you're focusing on control throughout the movement in a safe manner.
Yeah, I found as well, like when I started implementing steps with clients, like going from a ring row to a reverse row sit back, then they were just getting chin ups way quicker as well. Like
Oh,
they were just building
absolutely.
super
Yeah, man.
strength. Yeah.
It's crazy. And, sorry to interrupt you, but
Mm.
that's just, I think, a huge one. And really, dialing in that reverse row sit back. And the main thing, too, I find that with the reverse row sit back and being forced to keep your chest attached to the rings improves, once again, the mobility aspect of pulling the elbows behind you under load of your body. That improves that mobility, so that when you do get your chin ups, you are actually able to pull higher and get your chest closer to the bar, the rings, whatever you're working on. And so I love it because everything is working in conjunction there, to allow for multiple, yeah, results. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gains. Yeah.
And the biggest skill that I wanted to get, everyone wants to get. Actually, my client Sebastian, he was in Alpha Posse. He's been
Yeah.
working with me for a year. He just posted a video. He gained like 7 kilos, and he's got like 3 muscle ups just this week.
That's awesome.
Just complete badass. But like, it's kind of the number one skill people want to get generally when they
Yeah.
get the rings right. They want to get
Muscle
the
up.
muscle up. So like, what are the steps? Let's just say someone, maybe they can do a chin up, maybe not, but like what are the steps to get there?
Yeah. I would definitely say that you need to have multiple chin ups. I would say clean 5 chin ups would be good to start with. And when I say clean, I'm talking like no swing, dead hang, slow pull, you know, controlled the whole way when you're doing those. It's a good place to be able to start there. Definitely got to have a top position. So being able to hold yourself above the rings, preferably having the rings turned out slightly. It's going to show that you've got good mobility, external rotation. The inner muscles are strong enough to be able to support yourself above there. And then dip, you need to have some good solid dips. So that's really what I would be looking at in terms of being able to, start to work on the muscle up. From there, it's just a matter of working on the transition. This is where everyone has trouble, and that's why I spend so much time on the baby muscle up. In our muscle up course, that is a key component of it. You're always going to be using and conditioning yourself with more chin ups, more dips, but it really comes down to that transition and being able to have that mobility in your shoulders as well as the strength to be able to keep your shoulders pulled tightly, pardon me, your elbows pulled tightly into your side as you transition from either going above or below the rings. And this, coming back to what we were talking about earlier, lowering the rings and using the toes, feet on the ground just to work on that transition, get really strong with that, is what's really going to allow you to be able to eventually get that muscle up when you do raise the rings. We don't want swing on the muscle up. We want to make it clean, if you will, no kipping. And so it really can be as easy simply as making sure that you got your chin ups, making sure you have that top position dip, the dip with the top position, and then giving yourself plenty of time to get really strong at performing that transition, so that when you do just put it together, it's there. The muscle up, I'm going to be honest, is it doesn't need to be difficult. It really does
Mm-hmm.
not. If you just break it apart, what's the beginning, chin up, get really good at that. What's the middle portion? Transition, get really good at that. Then, the end portion is really just the top. And then once you actually have that, the negative portion of that is going to be easier. In multiple ways, you can work on it, but get really, really, really good at the transition and it's done in a safe manner. Get in volume done in a way that's using incremental intensity for that. And yeah, I think it'd be good to go. Yeah.
And
Everything we
then like,
cover in the muscle up course.
yeah. One thing actually I'm curious about, because like obviously rings one, rings two, I bought it and I've never done it because I was like, holy crap, this program is
It's
so
intense.
intense.
Yeah, dude,
Um,
it's intense. Yeah.
But like, I'm curious your approach to programming. That was, quite a while ago that you did Rings One. So how is the muscle up program different? A big thing I liked about the Rings programs was like the creativity, the flow, and everything like that. Can you maybe explain to people a bit more? Maybe they have Rings One already, they've gone through it. They mightn't have gotten a muscle up, but they might want
For
to,
sure.
or they might want to refine their muscle up. Like, how's the new program laid out,
Absolutely.
and how like,
Yeah.
and you're doing coaching in it as well, from what I've
It's
seen,
coaching,
right?
right? That's the big thing. And it's specifically tailored tailored to the muscle up. And so the programming in there is, to be honest, nothing fancy. It's simply, okay, exactly what I said. It's this and this. This is how you're going to work it today. And then go in there and use auto regulation. In other words, how are you feeling today? Where are you? And then use the appropriate volume in order to get it. The last thing we want is for you to injure your elbows, because that's a typical thing that we hear from people as I was doing the muscle up and stuff, but my elbows or my shoulder, that's because typically people do it with their elbows flared out, right? So a big part of the course actually really is just looking at mechanics, spending a lot of time in the transitional phase, the transition, and done in a way that is going to help you to slowly build up the volume to strengthen not just the muscles, but the tendons as well, so that you're ready to do it down the road. It's a shorter course in terms of it's like 6 weeks. So it's doesn't mean you're, going to nail I'm not going to say you're going to nail the muscle up in 6 weeks. It all depends on where you are, but where you're coming from in the very beginning. We have a lot of people get it. But the thing of it is, it's really preparing yourself to understand how to train it in a productive way. And so we do have people who are doing other workouts along with the muscle up in the course. Now, personally, I mean, I think my personal opinion, if for your upper body, if you're just going through the muscle up course, that's going to be plenty for the upper body. Put in some leg work on the days that you don't have the muscle up course programming, because it's not an everyday thing. You're stretching every day, you're working on your mobility, but the actual work, we're not going to load you up every single day. We spread it out so you have recovery. But, you know, I think it's crazy. Some people actually on their off days, they're doing another upper body session and things like that. But that's a whole other topic. Yeah.
Yeah, from personal experience, guys, I got loads of elbow tendonitis from doing the opposite of what Ryan recommended.
Yeah,
And
it
just,
happens, man. Yeah,
yeah, if you
it's
the rings
crazy.
are super intense. If you haven't done rings before, like just go very gently with the volume because it's just different.
Yeah,
It's way more intense than the
yeah.
barbell. When's the coaching starting, mate? Have you started it already, or what's the
We
intake and
started.
everything like
It's
that?
already
You
started.
started already, yeah?
So
Cool.
I lie. It'll start. Depends on when this podcast goes out. But end of May, beginning of June, we're starting the course itself. Registration going on to the end of May, and the first official week of June, we'll start the course, and it should be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome, man. And then can you just buy the course if you've missed the intake? Or how's that
Um,
working?
the simple answer would be no right now,
Yeah.
but we'll see about options later down the road. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Cool, mate. Anything else you want to talk about with regards to getting the muscle up?
No, just keep at it, be smart, don't overtrain. That's
Yeah,
about it.
be slow, take it easy. Awesome,
Yeah.
mate.